Yes, Mike, your microphone is on. At this point, I'd like to introduce Michael Risse, and he's the director in charge of the Windows DNA 2000 products. He's going to go through and talk about, in addition to Application Center, what else we're doing with the Windows DNA 2000 product line and how all these pieces all fit together. So I give you Mike Risse.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, question. How many of you worked on Visual Basic 3.0? A couple hands. How many worked on Visual Basic 2.0? How many of you worked on Visual Basic 1.0? 2, 3. Okay, I was the product manager for Visual Basic 1.0. Cool product. And did a few things to the world. Since then, I worked on Microsoft Office, the introduction of Office 4.2, which was the first time we really put together an Office suite where the applications looked and worked like each other. And then, since then, worked on Visual Studio as a group product manager for Visual Studio when we introduced a set of applications that work together. And now, I'm working on this set of applications. And it's really cool to be able to talk to you because this is the first time I've had a chance to talk about these things as a set of products that we're going to be bringing to market later this year. And like working on Visual Basic, and like working on Microsoft Office, and like working on Visual Studio, you get the sense working on these things and the small pieces of feedback that you get that you're onto something big and important. Like something cool's about to happen here. And that's the sense I get working on these products, and you've spent all day with one of them, AppCenter, or Application Center, that we're going to be bringing out. And so it's kind of exciting and fun for me because now I get to walk through these or stumble through these slides. But the main point is I feel like we're on to something big. Feels like the days before we released Visual Basic, before we did Office, before we did Visual Studio, where we had the products right, we had our customers identified, we had interesting things to bring to market. And I hope you'll remember this as the first time that you heard about Application Center, you got information about Application Center, because a couple years down the line, you'll be able to stand in front of a group of people and go, you remember the first version of Application Center? I saw that thing before they released it. Man, you wouldn't believe how far it's come since then. But it's going to be a big summer for us. And we'll talk a little bit about dates, but our starting point for all of this is Windows 2000. Right? We got that out, took a little longer than we wanted to, but we didn't want to put it out to market until it was ready to go. But once we've got that Windows 2000 base out there, now we can start adding these server products that are going to let people take advantage of Windows 2000. They're going to scale to the enterprise. They're going to take advantage of the web. And they're going to work well together. That includes our Exchange product, our SQL product, our AppCenter product, our Commerce Server product, our Host Integration Server product, our BizTalk product, and our AppCenter product. So as you can imagine, we've got quite a few busy months ahead of us between now and when those products come out. So I know Garth started this morning with the Windows DNA architecture slide, which is taking a while to build on my machine here. Either that or my mouse stopped working. Ha, there it is. So you saw this before. Just to bring you back, this is the comprehensive platform for quickly building scalable applications. As I said, its starting point is Windows 2000 with all of those application services built in that you can use to build your distributed web-based solutions. To that, we add a set of tools that you can use to quickly develop, of course, Visual Studio. And then what I'm going to be doing is focusing on the rest of the products down here at the bottom that complement the Application Server product. In a way, Application Server is the last thing you should be thinking about. The first thing you should be thinking about is building Windows DNA applications, then maybe adding some commerce functionality, adding some business-to-business functionality, integrating it with your host, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this thing's successful. I need to scale it and manage it, and that's where Application Center plays. So it's actually the last part, maybe of a way of thinking through the development process. But today you actually saw it up front and first. So this is Windows DNA 2000 application development platform. I know that Garth showed you a bunch of cool benchmarks. The benchmark from last summer from DocuLabs, where we competed on NT 4.0 against Solaris, against a number of different products. That was a pretty cool benchmark. He showed you the TPC benchmark we just did 2 weeks ago with SQL Server. That was a pretty cool benchmark. Benchmarks are nice. The interesting thing for us, though, is what happens in the real world. So you may have seen some of the new advertising we've been doing about the different companies that are running on our platform, on our Windows DNA platform, and the success that they're having. It's maybe a surprise that we have so many different companies that are up and running today and doing this. And that's our challenge, is really to communicate what we're capable of accomplishing using these technologies together. So let's take a look at the different products that go along with Application Center. The first thing is Commerce Server. The first product we'll talk about is Commerce Server. Today we have a product called Site Server Commerce Edition. That's a lot of syllables, but Site Server Commerce Edition. Turns out Site Server Commerce Edition is doing quite well. I happen to have brought a small piece of paper that tells me a couple things about how well it's doing. 70% of the commerce sites in shop.org's top 100 shopping sites are using Site Server Commerce Edition, 70%. 82% of Commerce Server sites in ZD, Ziff Davis, top 500 websites use Site Server Commerce Edition, compared to 8% of the next, for its next closest competitor. Those are the best two numbers. So, lots of people using Site Server Commerce Edition today. It's a good enough product. It won the Best of Show for Commerce Server products 2 years in a row at Comdex, without revving in between. So that's our product today, and that's some idea of its success today. We're following that up, changing the name slightly to Commerce Server 2000. And the focus of Commerce Server 2000 is to make it even easier to build quickly interesting, compelling applications for customers. Because if you think about it, the web is a lot about driving out the middleman and driving out the profit margins associated with brokers. Well, that means that you don't get great margins in dealing in web business. If you're Amazon.com or eBay or Barnes & Noble or something, you're not getting great margins per sale, right? So the only way you're going to make money is by bringing those customers back, building affinity, building a good service organization, building a sense of, I'm going to go there out of some sense of loyalty or convenience. Now, building that experience for your users, you can do it yourself. To be clear, the biggest competitor to either Site Server Commerce Edition or to Commerce Server 2000 is a developer writing their own functionality from scratch. That's what a lot of people do. It's certainly a choice. What we want to do is make it easy and obvious to say, instead of writing all of this stuff, you ever written a shopping basket, right? You ever written a personalization engine? You ever written a referral engine based on product X equal, maybe that's a good thing to use for product Y? Instead of writing that stuff, you can use our infrastructure and add the value that makes your site your own and your own custom experience. That's what the focus of Commerce Server 2000 is. So we want to help or provide the foundation for building very interesting sites that attract customers and keep them coming back, because that's what the model is. This could be a customer on the internet, another business on the extranet. It could be an employee on the internet. But the point is, rather than writing the code, we'd like to give you some what we think are best-of-breed, well-tested services to use instead. This means you don't have to write it. You don't have to spend the time debugging it. You don't have to spend the time testing it. It's there. You can get to going and make it work. The other thing, or a second thing that we've really focused on in Commerce Server is scalability. As I said, a lot of people are using Commerce Server today, but they're also using it on some of the biggest sites on the web, like Dell.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Buy.com. Those sites are using it. They're big sites. They want to get bigger. So we have a lot of focus on scalability. One thing that we're doing, or one thing that we can just take advantage of, though, is Windows 2000. Windows 2000 is almost a brand new version of Commerce Server all on its own because they replumbed the IIS and ASP engine. When we tested Commerce Server 3.0, or excuse me, Site Server Commerce Edition, the existing version on Windows 2000, automatically could handle 50% more shoppers, more concurrent shoppers on 2 different benchmarks that we did and that Compaq did. So that gives you a sense of, first of all, we'll take advantage of Windows 2000. Secondly, we'll add even more scalability features so that you can build bigger, robust sites. One way we're doing that is we're giving you 5 sites that are pre-written, pre-configured for scale, so that you can build with confidence in a particular direction. Because let's face it, there's a lot of different ways you could build a site. Most of them are probably wrong somewhere down the line in terms of scaling out, being able to manage them. We give you 5 starter sites to start working from. The other thing we do is we just blow away scalability limits. So for today, for example, we can do our business analytics. In other words, our log analysis and our traffic analysis, product and customer analysis on about 2 gigs of data a day. In the next version, we'll be able to do 60+ gigs of data a day. If your site's got over 60 gigs of data a day coming from traffic analysis, log analysis, whatever else, call me from your vacation home in Miami or in the Keys or wherever you're taking your long vacations. But you've got a hell of a successful site. That's even beyond what Microsoft.com, the 4th most visited site on the web today, is currently getting. So focus on scalability, focus on a set of services you can quickly use, focus on getting you up and running quickly with a bunch of these pre-written sites. That's Commerce Server 2000. Currently, we're working on that. We expect it to ship, like most of these products, in the summer of year 2000. So Commerce Server, first product. Second product, BizTalk. One of the things about BizTalk Server is you always have to tell what BizTalk is first. And it's 2 things. BizTalk is an initiative with 2 parts. The first part is the BizTalk framework. The idea behind the BizTalk framework is if I'm talking about a shoe and you're talking about a shoe, we should describe it the same way so that we can talk to each other about shoes. We can talk about sole thickness, sole type, leather, tied, button, zippered, whatever. But we want to be able to talk about the same things the same way. And in fact, most of you with experience in any size organization, though, that sounds a whole hell of a lot simpler than it actually is. Making 2 systems talk to each other is a challenge. So part of our BizTalk initiative is around this BizTalk framework, which is about creating conventions for XML usage, working with different standards bodies and organizations to agree on this is what we're going to call, or this is how we're going to create a purchase order. This is how we're going to talk about manufacturing goods. This is how we're going to talk about shoes. And then publishing those schemas so that different people can use them. And if you haven't been to www.biztalk.org, I'd recommend it. That's where we publish the schemas. That's where there's information. That's where there's guidance on how to create your own schemas. But that's a good set of information about the BizTalk framework and about our partners who, once we have a defined schema through biztalk.org, will be able to support it. And there's many other companies like Commerce One and like On Display and like Web Methods and like Ariba and like whoever else that will be supporting these BizTalk schemas. So the BizTalk schemas is about having industry groups agree on XML schemas that they can use to define particular things, and then having widespread support for those frameworks in a number of different tools. That's the frameworks. The second type, or second part of BizTalk is about the BizTalk product and the BizTalk server, and about XML support in general in our products. I don't know if Garth drilled into this morning, but in Windows 2000, it's going to take a while to get out of that. In the next version of Windows, in Windows 2000, which is now shipping, the data access component is called ADO, or Active Data Objects. ADO supports XML now. With one property, you can convert from a record set to an XML stream and from an XML stream into a record set. Right? That's cool XML support that's in Windows 2000. Of course, there's also an XML parser that ships as part of Internet Explorer. There's also an XML Developer Center up on MSDN where we have code samples and information about using XML. We also have up there a preview of support in SQL Server for XML data so that you can actually store XML natively and query XML using XSL queries. So the BizTalk server part is one of a number of things we're doing to XML enable all of our products. If you haven't been to the XML Developer Center, I would also encourage you to check that out. But the BizTalk server is the actual product for transforming and moving around XML formatted messages. And so that's a different, so there's a product called BizTalk server. That's one part. There is an effort called BizTalk frameworks. That's another part. They are both parts of the BizTalk initiative, the focus of which is to make systems and help businesses work well and integrate together. So I hope that provides some level of context for what it is we're doing with BizTalk, both with the rest of the industry, as I said, On Display and all of your favorite companies are part of the BizTalk framework effort, as well as our own server product. So based on that, BizTalk Server 2000, reliable document interchange. Okay, we take a document, we change the document, we send the document, right? We change and transform the document based on an XSL definition which somebody has created. The BizTalk server manager or administrator has created. We support a lot of different industry formats. Now, this is a key thing to note. The BizTalk framework is about BizTalk and XML. The BizTalk server uses XML as its transformation engine, but can talk anything to anything. And that is a key part of the BizTalk server. What do you got? Okay, we'll talk that. And now we'll convert that, and now we'll put that back out. In fact, my favorite demo of BizTalk server is the file new dialog. Right? There in the BizTalk editor, which allows you to modify schemas, gives you an idea that, hey, there's a couple other things. There's Edifact and X12, which are different EDI formats. And of course, you can imagine we're working with ISVs to plug in more different types of schemas so that you have a choice, more and more choices. And of course, this uses something called WebDAV, which is a central store for storing your schema types. So you could also plug in your own schema types. And then you, by requiring your administrators to use that WebDAV, would always point them to the schema set that you've established as the standards for your organization. So that dialog, which speaks to, hey, BizTalk server, the product, yes, it uses XML. Yes, it does BizTalk framework-based schemas. But it will also do the set of things you have or the technologies you have and convert them to the set of technologies you want them to. And we will, of course, work with lots of vendors to make sure that that happens. So have any of you seen any of this? One person. You go to too many meetings. Two. Okay. So, well, let's just go into XML and open something. And the point is that this is a basic schema editor, which you can go in and set fields and properties and values and default values and required values and so forth. And when you're done, you can save this out and you can actually load this back up in Internet Explorer and see it. But it's kind of cool because so things like, I don't have something obviously. So I can go into data type and choose a different data type. I can go in and parse things. So for example, I can parse an Excel spreadsheet. I love that. I can parse simple things or comma-separated documents and parse them out into schemas and so forth. So this is the editor tool. The other part is the mapper. And what the mapper lets you do is then take a couple of different schemas and graphically create the XSL that will translate or transform the first document type to the second document type. So oops. There's WebDAV, which I said before. Let's do a file new. And we'll do, so now it'll go out and open both of those documents. And now what you can do is go in and start mapping the document records to the document record of the second schema. And you can do all sorts of interesting things here because, of course, you're not always going to get the, right? Things aren't always going to match one-to-one. Oh, I just pull this record over and make it that record. So sometimes you're going to have to do conversions. So for that, we provide this functoid palette. That's a technical term. And you can, I think this one, you can do things like, I think this one, oh, that's probably not going to work. Yeah, percent. So you can do many to one, one to many, parse, bring things together, spread things back out, right? But at the end of this, you will create an XSL file, and then you can go, what happens with the BizTalk server is it runs that XSL file and takes documents of one type, converts it to another type, does reliable messaging and routing between them. And actually, as the slide says, you're able to do that. So that's sort of that reliable document interchange is the part that I just showed you in terms of the mapper and the editor. Then you can reliably route these documents around to different systems that are expecting them. And you can do that over HTTP, SMTP, FTP, fax, transport protocols, other types of messaging infrastructures. So that's a little bit about what BizTalk Server provides, with the goal being that you will let business systems talk to each other. And that will work within a particular organization or across organizations. The main difference is that across organizations, it seems more likely to expect XML being the interchange format, as opposed to within your existing system, you've got SAP iDocs, or you've got a bunch of existing systems where you need to pull or push, convert to XML to get to some other system one way or the other. But the goal is of the BizTalk initiative to get the standard set in the BizTalk schemas and to provide this engine for transformation, reliable messaging, and routing that will actually do the work of conversion. So that's BizTalk. So now you can imagine I've built a website. We'll go back to my original analogy. You've built a website. You added some functionality, some end user functionality, so that now your users have a better experience through a shopping cart and personalization. You can track those users. You can analyze those users in terms of where they're going and what they're doing. You then now take orders from your users. You bring them into your website. Based on those orders, you transform them and then share them with a partner in terms of somebody maybe who's actually going to be doing delivery. But one of the things is you're actually running, say your billing system is an existing system on a IBM host. Well, Host Integration Server, which is a rename of our existing SNA server product, is the product for integrating websites with your existing systems. So you've got these systems there. It provides the SNA gateway, which is its name, SNA server, SNA gateway. Okay, that makes sense. But it also has other functionality. For example, it has something called COM-TI, COM Transaction Integrator. So you can actually enlist a CICS transaction as part of your web transaction or part of your COM+ transaction. There's also in this product a bridge from MSMQ, which is the messaging functionality in Windows 2000, to an MQ Series bridge. MQ Series, of course, the IBM product. Also, this is where we include adapters or drivers to get to different types of databases, Oracle drivers, DB2 drivers, better integration here between SQL Server and Oracle, for example, with different types of replication between the two systems. So Host Integration Server is the product that lets you integrate with existing systems that you have. BizTalk Server is the product that's based on XML to exchange information between different systems. Commerce Server is the thing focused on the end user experience, creating that quickly, scaling it easily, and then tracking what the users are doing. So after you build all that, then, of course, you'll want to scale it out with Application Center. And all of these products are working with the Application Server product. So, for example, a farm of BizTalk servers, right? You've got to do a lot of transactions in a day. So you've got 5 BizTalk servers. Well, we want to be able to manage that BizTalk server farm using Application Center. You've got, this is 5 or 50 or 150 front-end websites running Commerce Server, all going back to a couple of application logic servers and database server. That's the system we want to be able to manage using Application Server functionality. So far, all of these things have been built up, and then the Application Server component is the manage. We also are shipping a new version of SQL Server. So I wanted to add a couple points about that, because these products will also work well with SQL Server. The business analytics, for example, in Commerce Server uses SQL Server. BizTalk Server, of course, you're going to want to have some sort of auditing of what's actually happened, what's been transformed, where it is. That's all stored in SQL Server. Host Integration Server for the messaging link needs a place to store messages reliably in a transactional way. That is SQL Server. So there's a relationship, and I think you probably heard about Application Center and the way that it stores up information about usage patterns. That, again, is SQL Server. So all of these products have a relationship with SQL, as well as using SQL as just your big database for storing lots of information, data of inventory, whatever. So SQL Server 2000, database-free commerce. I talked a little bit about the XML support that it has, store it natively. You can update it. You can query it using XML. Garth talked before about the scalability with the ability to partition a database across multiple servers. We take advantage, as Windows gets bigger, and more capable in terms of memory. SQL Server also will get bigger and more scalable and take advantage of memory. It's a fairly straightforward relationship. And finally, we are today and expect to continue to be the easiest database for building and for managing. Right? One of the great parts about the DocuLab's results last summer is that we basically set up the test and let it run and walked out of the room. The guy who did it, Greg Leak, was just like, is a tools guy. He built the app and worked the app. He's not a database guy. But they set it up and he walked out and it ran. And it was fine, right? Because SQL Server was able to self-tune through the process of the tests. And you compare that to the Oracle database that they were running for these Solaris tests, and they had an Oracle DBA that was constantly working on that system. So we are today, I believe, and will continue to focus on being the easiest to build and manage database product. Wrong thing. So the product packaging of all of this, we've gone from a world of Windows NT. How many people installed the option pack? You guys, people deserve something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Never again. So, no more of that. It's in there. You want it? It's in there. Com Plus, IIS, MSMQ. Our ADO stack is now a system level service, right? You want to change ADO or the MDAX stack? You go sign in blood on Jim Olchin's door, and they might think about it. But those are all parts of the operating system, installed as part of the operating system, protected as pieces of the operating system, so nobody's going to monkey with those files no matter what you install. So all of those are included in all versions of Windows 2000. Of course, the idea is that you can go in and build something, you know, on Pro. I'm running Pro on my laptop, and all the same functionality is there that you can then take to the different versions of the operating system. So that's Windows 2000. Multiple versions, professional server and advanced server are now available. Data center, another part of the coming storm of products, I think currently slated for summer of 2000. Today we have Site Server Commerce Edition. We'll have Commerce Server 2000. Today you can get started with the BizTalk Jumpstart Kit. It's out on biztalk.org. We'll have BizTalk Server 2000. You spent all day today learning about AppCenter 2000. SNA Server 4.0 is out today. We will have Host Integration Server 2000. And then the follow-up SQL Server will have SQL Server 2000. And the existing set of tools, Visual Studio is actually, we updated last fall with support for some of the new Windows 2000 features, training information on Windows 2000 features. So if you've got Visual Studio 6, you're good to go. So that's the product line that we expect to be bringing to market through this summer as these products RTM and move out into the channel. So for additional, I don't know what else you'd possibly want to know about all of this, but that's me, so don't call me. Call Garth, who's the product manager on Application Center. Chris Olson, I wasn't sure if we were able to get them here. Chris Olson is the product manager for BizTalk Server and Host Integration Server, and Rebecca Kumar is the lead for Commerce. If you're internal, there's a couple great sites you can go to. 3 things I would strongly recommend every person to have if you've ever installed the option pack or otherwise. One, there is now on MSDN an article written by one of the senior guys in the Windows team called the DNA Blueprint. If you haven't seen it, I would strongly recommend it. Great basic architectural overview of the way to design for scalability, reliability, manageability, and availability. How to do it, how to think it through, what you need for management, what you need for design, and so forth. If you don't have it, get that document. Maybe we could actually just send it to everybody if there's interest, but it's really a good thing to have. The next thing, of course, is in the Visual Studio section, we have a couple of different solution centers. One of them is focused on scalability. That's where you'll find the DocuLab results. That's where you'll find the sample code. That's where you'll find performance tuning. That's where you'll find setup instructions for the same solution that we ran in those tests last summer. Between that sample and between that document, there's a lot of great information about how to successfully set these sites up. And of course, once you set that type of site up, then that's where Application Center plays, right? Because sooner or later, you're going to want to scale that out on multiple servers, and we'll be ready as soon as possible, but not too soon. to support the management and deployment of your solution across multiple boxes. So that concludes my very brief presentation. We're excited about AppCenter. We're excited about this wave of 2,000 products. We're excited about the way that people can put these together and build scalable sites that run big companies. All of Microsoft is 100% Microsoft products. All of Microsoft.com is 100% Microsoft products. Dell.com, Buy.com, BarnesandNoble.com, MotleyFool.com, 1-800-Flowers.com, something.com. We're getting there. And we think we're going to have a great set of tools and products to help people. And thank you very much, because we're not confused about our ability or our need to work well with others to get support for these products and get lots of interesting things and lots of ways for developers to be successful from Microsoft and from lots of other people. So thank you very, very much for attending the presentation today. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Mike. And actually, I'm going to do something on the fly here, which makes things more interesting. This is the DNA blueprint that Mike was talking about, and you can see the URL at the top. I thought it was easier to do it this way than trying to remember all this, so it's msdn.microsoft.com, msdn-online, start, features, DNA blueprint.
Or just search on DNA blueprint, and it's the only thing you'll find.
But this is it. It's about a 40-page article that goes through just about every detail of creating a Windows DNA web application. So I would highly recommend it. I completely agree with that. At this point, what we'd like to do is to open the floor for questions of any type. We're a little bit early, but I'll do what I can on those. The plan from this point is we're going to we've got dinner coming up at 6 o'clock, and so for those of you who need to check your email, things of that nature, we'll take a break. And at the dinner, we're going to have tables set up with what we're calling the Ask the Expert section. In that section, what we're going to do is we're going to have the product managers, or the program managers who are here today will be available at the tables to answer your questions. In addition, we're going to have people representing the Windows DNA 2000 products, answering your questions there, and also some people who are here for the 64-bit Windows 2000 sessions for tomorrow. And so there will be some people representing those areas as well. So that will be in the McKinley room at the other end of the conference center. And again, that starts at 6 o'clock. So at this point, I'll open the floor for any questions that you have on just about anything, as scary as that is. All right, we'll see you at dinner at 6 o'clock.